Okay, on to preparing this neck blank. So I'm going ahead and use my template to make a general indicator where my truss rod's going to be. Go ahead and mark out my final outline and get all of these tuner holes located. I'm going to do it on both sides. That way I can use my Forstner bit to bring that hole from both directions so that I meet in the middle and keep a nice clean edge. I'll go ahead and use my center punch to make sure that I get my starting hole evenly aligned in the middle of each of these tuner holes. They do make jigs for setting this up to get perfectly aligned tuner holes. I just make sure that I get all my dimensions proper, that I'm using a center punch so that my bit is well centered, and a good sharp Forstner bit so that I can get clean holes that stay true to my marking. Now I need to locate the resting position of my truss rod. I will be using a hot rod spoke nut style, which is a little bit different than traditional, but pretty cool. I'll repurpose my table saw as a router fence. After using different blocks and shims to get the center of my neck blank in the center of my routing pocket, I'll go ahead and use my router and clean that out. I'll bring it down to the proper depth of my adjustable truss rod. Now let's just make sure that that truss rod fits. Oh yeah, look at that. Nice and snug. Now let's do a little bit of tracing of our neck blank to get a rough cut edge for our ebony fretboard. Ebony is a very hard surfaced wood, but it's actually very brittle. So we want to go real slow and take our time with cutting ebony. Not to mention the fumes off from it are very acidic, so a little bit toxic to the nostrils. We'll mark out an access point for that cool little spoke nut. And back to the bandsaw, do a little bit of cutout for that pocket. I am using a pre-grooved fretboard, which it was only like $5 or $6 more for the neck blank with it already cut for the fret wires. I highly recommend this. I do them myself sometimes, but man, it's tedious. After a little bit of file work, we'll check its placement. Oh yeah. Now, we don't want any glue to seep down into our truss rod compartment, so I'll just use a little bit of tape just so that our glue goes over the truss rod and not down into the pocket. Little bit of centering of our fretboard, and then we'll do some clamping. Be sure that you get this thing set properly though. My last acoustic, I woke up the next morning to take a look at the fretboard after it glued onto the neck and realized that it had shifted about 3/16 of an inch. So I actually had to real quickly learn how to remove a fretboard, which you do with an electric iron and a little bit of persistence. So not the funnest thing in the world to do, but can be done if necessary. Okay, after a day of drying, we'll do a final inspection and on to the last phase, finish and shaping.